want is right here. We gon' give them what they came for. We gon' take it up from last year. Shoot 'em a shot, boy, I'm long range. Me and the team on the same thing. Stayed down, never switched up. Only thing changed was the game. I'm in the zone now. Nothing can change what we on now. When I pull up, know it's going down. Foot on the gas, ain't no slowing down. Aiming for greatness, no settling. Kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Taking no L's, yeah, I gotta win. Watch me kick down the doors, they won't let me in. Who running the game now? Foot on the gas, can slow down. No, my team, we holding it down. We know we running it now. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change. Watch the game change.
Welcome to another edition of the It's Cavalier podcast. It's your boy Mac. And tonight, our Cleveland Cavaliers took on the Philadelphia 76ers, the fifth seeded team in the Eastern Conference. They enter tonight just a game and a half ahead of the Cavaliers in the Eastern Conference standings and winners of 6 out of their last 10 games. And look, here's the thing. Win or lose, Philly has proven to be a difficult matchup for Cleveland over the years. Even if you go back 10 seasons, Cleveland is just 19-17 versus Philly. And yeah, while that may be a winning record, it's almost 500. Now, obviously, that moved in the right direction after tonight's victory. We'll dig into all of that, the good, the bad, the ugly, all of that occurred. But a lot of this has been because of the existence of one man, Joel Embiid. Ladies and gentlemen, Embiid has been a thorn in the Cavs side for a long time now. He came into tonight holding a career record of an 11-8 versus Cleveland with averages of 26.3 points, 11.6 rebounds, 6.9 assists, and he is shooting 45.2% from the field, including 36.8% from three-point distance in his 19 matchups prior to tonight against the Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, that being said, this isn't the same Embiid the Cavaliers have been dueling over the years, right? Even this current core against Donovan Mitchell, Darius, Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jarrett Allen. This is not the same Joel Embiid. He is, I don't want to say worn down or beaten down or anything like that, because he's still very, very capable. And you saw him have many, many big-time sequences tonight for Philly. But at the same time, clearly, it's not the same version of Joel Embiid as the Cavaliers have been accustomed to seeing over the last 6 to 7 years or so, right? Embiid tonight would finish with just 20 points and played a little under 25 minutes. But suffice to say, this Philly team may not have what it takes to keep up with Cleveland on their best day when the teams are playing their best versions of themselves. Let's start with the first quarter, shall we? Now, right out of the gate, Darius Garland got things going with a triple. It immediately went down the other went down the other side of the court and gave up points on the other end after fouling Paul George. Now, we're going to talk about Darius Garland a lot tonight. And unfortunately for Darius, he left tonight's game early. I'll save that for a later segment, but that's how the game started off, right? It was quite chaotic, if I do say so myself, as both teams worked their way into the painted area. The Cavaliers got off to a really, really blistering start. They forced a timeout after an 8-0 run to go up 17-10. They kept the pressure on the interior defense. They kept the pressure on the defense, on the interior, and it was a lot of good sequences that occurred in the first quarter. They were eventually up 30-16. And I'll tell you what, one really, really good development that was just wonderful to see, especially in the early going of this game, was DeAndre Hunter finally getting out of his slump, right? And we know this obviously comes hot on the heels of the fake trade report that came out the other day from HP Basketball, right? But I'll tell you what, this dude absolutely came to play tonight, at least in the first quarter or so. He scored 8 points within a 4-minute stretch to help the Cavs execute a 21-6 run over about an 8-minute stretch of time. They saw that he was going, and they kept going to him, which is something I like to see, to be honest with you. He got a solid amount of attempts as a result. Actually, he took 8. I mean, he took 8 in total in the first quarter, leading all players in the first frame in that area, sharing the scoring lead with none other than Darius Garland. And speaking of Garland, he was very, very impactful from tip-off. Number one, As I mentioned, he tied Dre for the scoring lead and was out there diming up his teammates, especially getting the ball to the bigs out of the pick and roll in the HO game. He was just getting downhill and antagonizing the interior defense of Philadelphia, and he would continue that well into the second quarter. He was especially effective with the use of his patented floater that he has been really, really efficient with over the last 10 games or so. And something else that was really nice to see in the first, I just have to point this out, it's the team rebounding, right? The offensive glass, to be specific. They scored 11 second chance points on 8 offensive rebounds in the first fucking quarter alone. That's not something that you can often say for this team. They scored 11 second chance points to Philadelphia's 2. They outworked Philly in that first quarter in the painted area 10-6, and they beat them in fast break points 5-2 as well. Now, when the second quarter got started, we got a bit of a surprise. And that came in the form of Lonzo Ball minutes, right? His first appearance in 4 games. He actually had some really solid run early on, and I know a lot of people are probably rolling their eyes right now, but I got to point this out because we haven't seen him in a while. And he drilled a corner tray within the first 4 minutes and 49 seconds of play. And I am always, if I'm just being honest with you guys, I am always left wanting more, just a bit more. And it always circles back to one particular element. All right. We know Lonzo can pass. We know he can facilitate. We know he can make plays for others. But the one thing that is missing from that is dribble penetration. As soon as he touches the ball, you often know what he's going to do or what he's going to default to. He's going to move the ball around the perimeter, attempt to set a screen for one of the guards or bigs, and repeat until he's in the corner. Still, though, it was really, really good to see him. And to that point, I have something that I have to also point out. Lonzo Ball, ladies and gentlemen, tonight, 9 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and maybe the best part of all, he was 3 of 6 from the field, with all 3 of those being triples. Don't look now, but Lonzo Ball is actually shooting the basketball more effectively from 3-point distance over his last few appearances, right? When you look at what Lonzo has been able to do, and it's incredibly low volume, so I'll just be honest in that regard, but he's played a lot better in terms of efficiency over his last few appearances. That so far in as far as tonight is concerned, right? Now, in the previous couple of games, Lonzo, when we saw him, the thing that really stood out to me is the fact that he just wasn't attempting that shot at all, right? I believe we last saw Lonzo against the Detroit Pistons, just 10 minutes of action where he attempted just 1 shot. Now, in Lonzo's prior 6 games, which is a stretch that includes a Chicago appearance on December 19th through Detroit, Lonzo was shooting 38.5% from 3-point distance. That's not bad at all. It's just low volume. It's 2.2 attempts per game, but I'll take 38.5%. And then you add tonight's percentages on top of that, and that's honestly a lot better. That would make him 8 of 19. And I am not the best at math, but 8 of 19 translates to 42.1% from 3-point range over his last 7 appearances. That's the Lonzo that we need, right? And obviously, the bulk of this came in the latter stages of the game when the game was already out of hand. That does have to be pointed out. It was essentially a blowout type of scenario when Lonzo took the court once more after seeing the court early in the second. So I will be 100% transparent with that. But shot making is one of those things that no matter where in what part of the game it's coming in, it can carry over and translate to the next game and so on and so forth. And so the one complaint I think that we have seen from fans, especially in this chat, right, when it comes to Lonzo, when I'm talking to people about Lonzo in these post-game streams, one of the things that's being said a lot is, well, Lonzo's not being allowed to shoot, or Lonzo's playing off ball, or he's not operating in ways that make the best use of his skill set. One thing I think we can all agree on, though, is volume in terms of shot making. It's one thing to go 1 of 2 from 3-point distance, But to take 6 attempts and knock down half of them, that's a step in the right direction, especially for Lonzo. I'm not going to make this all about him because there were much more fantastic performances than what Lonzo did tonight. But this is a nice little nugget of information that I think is important to note moving forward, especially with what could potentially be occurring with the likes of Sam Merrill and unfortunately Darius Garland. We're going to get to those two in just a bit, but I think it makes sense, especially moving forward. If you're going to need somebody to step up in that rotation, it's got to be Lonzo Ball, right? We know Craig Porter Jr., he's been playing some of the most impactful basketball of his career. And we know some of the other role players have stepped up. Sam Merrill, Jalen Tyson, these guys are breaking out. But you really need Lonzo to step up and step up big. Truly good to see him knocking down those shots. Again, over Lonzo's last 7 performances, including tonight's game, he is now shooting 8 of 19. That translates to roughly 42.1% from three-point range. Good to see from one Lonzo Ball. I'm happy that we actually got to see him, to be honest. Still, it's not as if the Philadelphia 76ers don't have a bunch of guys that can go out there and get hot at the drop of a hat or can outperform their opponents on the offensive side of the ball. One thing to that point that I did not like seeing was Paul George beginning to cook. And he was, right? He was knocking down perimeter shots. He was picking up on mismatches, right? Taking advantage of that. And he would end up scoring 9 of his 11 first half points in the second quarter, if I'm not mistaken. And also I have to point one other thing out. Darius Garland, despite leaving the game early in this one, passed Kevin Love for the 9th most points scored in Cavaliers history. That is a big deal, right? He entered the game needing just 13 to pass Love. Now, Kevin Love had 7,663 points for the franchise. Think about that. Those are pretty big numbers. Those are pretty big numbers when you really think about what Darius Garland has been able to do, even with the missed time. So credit where credit is due. Darius was absolutely phenomenal in the first half of this game and really into the second half before leaving. But if we're being honest, if we're being truly honest with ourselves, the star of the first half was none other than Evan Mobley, who was doing a bit of everything out there. He ran inverted pick and roll with Darius Garland. He was getting downhill and putting pressure on the Philly defense. He drew 3-point shots from the corner. He was making plays for others, especially in the big to big department, right? We saw Evan Mobley hit Jarrett Allen, much like he's done over the past couple of years. He finds him and puts him in just the right spots out of that dunker spot down in the painted area in the post. He was extremely active on the glass as well. And to that point, Evan Mobley he just really showed out with a very versatile stat line through the first 2 quarters of this game. 13 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, 1 steal, 1 block, was 6 of 8 from the field, including 1 of 1 from 3-point distance. He was absolutely phenomenal tonight. And this is what frustrates people the most about Darius Garland at times. Oh, not Darius Garland, Evan Mobley at times. Darius can be frustrating too, but Evan Mobley is one of these guys who can play very, very inconsistent in terms of, number one, calling for the ball, getting involved in the offense. I think a lot of people have wanted Evan to become a vocal leader of this team for a long time in terms of calling for the ball. And there have been points during this season when he's done that, and we already know he's gotten elevated usage this year. We know they're putting the ball in his hands a lot more than they ever have. He has increased touches, and it has yielded mixed results. And it's been kind of game to game for him, and he'll have some games where he looks like fucking phenomenal, like he did tonight, and he'll have others where he is reserved, too laid back and just not involved enough in the offense. A lot of that is on the offensive scheme and flow and the guards not getting him the ball, but a lot of that is on Evan too, right? You can put some of it on coaching in terms of Kenny Atkinson and calling plays for him or running the offense through him at times. But I think this is a one of those things where it's multifaceted. You need Evan Mobley to continue to step up. You need the guards to continue to get the ball to Evan, and you need Kenny Atkinson to continue to empower Evan Mobley, and you'll have more performances like we saw, especially in the first half of this game. Now, on the game as a whole, Evan Mobley would finish with 17 points, 13 rebounds, 6 assists, 1 steal, 4 blocks. Again, very, very versatile stat line we got with this guy tonight. He was 7 of 10 from the floor, if I'm not mistaken. And he was 2 of 4 from the charity stripe, right? Got to continue to work on those free throws, but I'll take it because of how much impact he provided in this game. Evan Mobley was a plus 27 out there tonight, folks. Dude was massively impactful. He was very, very physical with the likes of Joel Embiid out there, who clearly, I don't want to say he's lost his step, but I mean, he's lost a step and he's continuously getting hurt. He even had an injury scare tonight where I think he got hit in the face. But we're no strangers to that, considering the Cavaliers experienced some very debilitating injuries of their own, right? Into the first or into halftime of this game, before we get to that, Cleveland, from a statistical standpoint, had things rolling. So, a couple of particulars I just want to throw out there: 22 points in the paint through the first 2 quarters to Philadelphia's 8. The Cavaliers did turn the ball over a lot in that first half. So did Philly, too. But Cleveland, while they turned the ball over 8 times, they did capitalize on Philadelphia's miscues more than Philadelphia capitalized on theirs, right? Cleveland turned the ball over 8 times. Philly turned the ball over 7 times. Cleveland scored 12 points off of Philly's 7 turnovers. Philly scored 9 points off of Cleveland's 8 turnovers. The bench was more involved from the jump in this one. Obviously, you saw that with DeAndre Hunter in the early going, and that would be a continuing trend as the game wore on. Obviously, the Cavaliers will get out to multiple big time leads, and then we really got to jump into what was ailing me at certain points, right? One thing I do feel the need to point out is that, like I started this off by saying, Philly does have some heavyweights out there, and Embiid is included in that. Guys who can either shoot them back into the game or grind them back into it with some hard work and hustle and effort out there. And that starts and ends with Embiid, who really got himself going in that second quarter. He scored 10 of his 13 first half points in the second quarter, but he was a big reason why they turned the ball over a lot. He turned the ball over 5 times through the first 2 quarters of this game as Cleveland got really, really physical with them. Jarrett Allen and Evan Mobley, really the whole Cleveland roster, that the whole rotation got in there and just wasn't going to take any shit from him, especially in the post and on the glass. I really was impressed with their work out there in terms of team rebounding. Third quarter hits, though. This is the one that we might end up having to circle back to, depending upon some of the injury news that comes back. But I'll start off by saying this: Evan Mobley kept up his really high level of play in the second half, especially on the defensive end. And this is to tie it all together, right? Unfortunately for Philadelphia, what that meant is that one of their players would be hurt. You hate to see it happen. Dominic Barlow, he got helped off the court after Evan Mobley absolutely erased. And I don't even know if that's the best word for it. It was just a beautiful ass rejection, right? He erased his attempt at the rim that left Barlow on the ground. He fell hard and he had to be helped off the floor, right? Sucks to see. But as I mentioned, the Cavaliers are no stranger to this. As Sam Merrill, this dude cannot catch a break. He cannot catch a break. It was reported by Chris Fedor that Sam Merrill, questionable with a right hand injury, did not come out of the locker room at halftime for warm-ups and is not on the bench. Mind you, Merrill entering this game had already missed a good amount of time this year dealing with that injury, right? I think 14 games missed due to that injury in particular. And to add insult to injury, to put salt in the wounds of the fan base, Darius Garland left the game in the third quarter as well after hurting his foot. I mean, it just, come rain or shine, in these good performances, it always has to be soured for one reason or another, and a lot of it circles back to injuries. Injuries, injuries, injuries. For all the good that we see from this team, somebody has to exit. It's like they paid a price in blood or something like that, right? And speaking of Chris Fedor, quick comment on that. He says Kenny Atkinson misspoke post game when he said Darius Garland re-injured his same problematic toe. It's been classified a right foot injury. The surgery this offseason was on his big toe on the left foot. Now, if you remember, just to make a little comedy out of this, right? They classified that injury, if I'm not, if my memory serves me correctly, they classified it as an injury to his great toe. I think that's what they called it. His left great toe, something like that. It maybe you guys can help me out a little bit, but I think that was what was initially reported. We all know it's a big toe, but I think that's what they called it. I found that comical at the time. But to me, it always seems like there's some type of bullshit going on in regards to injuries in these wonderful performances. Somebody always has to get hurt, especially after they're performing well or are coming off a stretch of games where they have been performing well. And you hate to see that. I'm hoping that Darius and Sam are okay in the long run, but man, it just feels like injuries have been taking their toll all season long, which is why it's important for guys like Lonzo to figure this shit out, right? And another step in the right direction for him. But after watching Darius only get to play 23 minutes tonight and Sam only play 9 minutes and 43 seconds tonight, you're going to need everybody, right? You're really going to need these guys to shield themselves from any further injuries. Luckily, and I guess before we move on, I do want to highlight Darius's night before he left. Darius would finish with 20 points, 3 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal, was 8 of 13 from the floor. That's 61.5% from the floor, including 3 of 7 from three-point distance, which is 42.9%. Case in point, Darius was very, very impactful tonight in limited minutes, and that three-point shot is starting to fall for him again. I think Darius over his last couple of games, he shot the ball a lot better. And I think that's something that we have all been hoping to see. He's managed to buoy his poor shot making from deep with some really insane efficiency inside the arc, especially in the mid-range area where he entered today within the 100th percentile among guards in that area. And a lot of that is due to him hitting the floater from the mid-range area. Some mid-range shots, like true mid-range attempts, but most of that is the floater, which he has hit with incredible efficiency. So shouts out to Darius. Hopefully he's okay. Maybe we'll get some news while we're in here. I'm trying to refresh my screens as often as I can to get an update on that. But time will tell in regard to Darius Garland. All of that said, Philly, you got to give them credit. They surged for a bit in that third quarter. I think they went on a 15-4 run to cut the lead down a little bit. But credit to Donovan Mitchell as well and company for responding. This motherfucker drilled shot after shot after shot after shot to hold the line and the lead and continue to put the Cavaliers up big. He scored 20 points in the third quarter alone, which represented the third 20-point quarter this year and his 15th time he's done so in his career, right? Just absolutely phenomenal. I feel like I messed up saying that. It was his third 20-point quarter of the season and his 15th all-time over the stretch of his career. He was absolutely spectacular. The spectacular Spider-Man, right? For any comic book fans out there. Phenomenal to see him do that. And he was a guy who is just always a threat to score from wherever, whether he is trying to penetrate the interior of a defense with some really, really nice dribble moves, or he is driving and kicking like he had a couple of nice dimes to the likes of Jalen Tyson out there. It was just really nice to see him go out there and carry the offensive load once Darius Garland and Sam Merrill went down. And I think this was Donovan Mitchell's 22nd game of the season with at least 30 points, which is tied for the third most 30-point games for any player in the NBA this year. just flat out phenomenal offensive showing and is showcasing exactly why he is in the top 10 for the MVP voting or the MVP ladder, rather. So we'll see if that continues. He's had so many phenomenal performances this year. He's had some duds as well, but Donovan has been phenomenal this year. One of a handful of players that have really been solid almost every single game. Fourth quarter began, and there just wasn't worth much taking notes over outside of a couple of minor details. Jalen Tyson continued to torch Twine. Lonzo got back out there. You got more Craig minutes. We got to see Larry Nash Jr. I know a lot of people out here are completely out on Larry, done with Larry. Had a convo earlier with Larry today. It was just let him know, man. I hope we see you tonight, and I continue to hope and praying that his versatility, because I still believe he's a versatile player. I don't think he's somebody that'll be an everyday player anymore, considering that guys that play in the spots where he would be getting minutes, like Naquan Tomlin, DeAndre Hunter, Dean Wade. Dean has missed a good amount of time now, consecutively, good amount of games. But suffice to say, Larry is not a rotation player anymore. That said, it was nice to see him get out there because he missed a good chunk of the season with the calf strain. So hopefully he doesn't suffer any more injuries because I do enjoy watching him take the court. Tyrese Proctor suited up as well. So really everybody who dressed played tonight, from Jalen Tyson and Donovan Mitchell to Tyrese Proctor and Thomas Bryant. Everybody played, and that's exactly what you want to see. Nobody on the Cleveland side of things played more than Donovan Mitchell or than Evan Mobley's 33 minutes and 32 seconds. Donovan was a close second at 33 minutes and 18 seconds. And nobody played fewer than 4 minutes and 58 seconds, that being Thomas, Larry, and Tyrese. Really, really good showing from the Cavaliers from start to finish, hoping they can continue to replicate performances like this and not have performances like they did against the likes. It's just such a pitiful showing that they had in their previous game. And I hate when that happens, when they have this really, really massive showing like they did against the Minnesota Timberwolves, and then they followed it up with this shitty ass showing against uh, an opponent in the Utah Jazz. And, it's not really to disrespect them, but the Cavaliers are supposed to be the superior team, and they did not play like the superior team in that game. But they turn around as inconsistent as they have been this year, and they showed you exactly why there is hope for this team, and they beat a pretty good Philadelphia 76ers team that has a lot of talent still on that roster when you talk about Tyrese Maxey. And speaking of Tyrese Maxey, because I feel like I haven't mentioned him at all tonight, outside of name dropping him earlier on, Tyrese had a pretty strugglesome, it's not even a word. He struggled tonight. 14 points on 5 of 16 from the floor, including 2 of 8 from distance, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, was a minus 22. I think Tyrese Maxey actually had the lowest plus minus or the worst plus minus on the floor tonight among all players at minus 22. You don't like saying that for a star player, but it'll happen. We've seen that happen to Darius. We've seen it happen to Evan, Donovan, Lonzo a lot, right? So I don't think that'll continue to be the case for him. But when you're talking about a guy in Tyrese Maxey that can absolutely put the ball in the hoop at a high level, I mean, you're talking about a guy who's third in the NBA in scoring at 30.5 points per game. And the Cavaliers held him 16 points below his seasonal average. Let that sink in. The Cavaliers held Tyrese Maxey 16 points below what he normally scores. And he played 31 minutes and 11 seconds of action tonight. The Cavaliers should be very, very proud of what they were able to accomplish on the defensive end in regard to Maxey. Don't get me wrong. There are certainly plays where he's going to get his, and that's great. But to me, I think that anytime you can do that, you have to pat yourself on the back, because just like Donovan Mitchell, this is a dude that can go out there and absolutely obliterate you either from beyond the arc or inside of it. And Maxey, for what it's worth, he's one of those guys who has been absolutely obliterating the three-point line. He has third in the NBA, or rather, he entered tonight third in the NBA in three-point makes behind Donovan Mitchell's 148 and Steph Curry's 143. Tyrese has 137. Not to mention his efficiency. He's shooting the ball pretty damn well as well. So you got to give him credit for what it's worth, and you have to give credit for Cleveland for shutting him down, and that feels good. Outside of all of those things being mentioned, the one thing I'm really, really hoping for outside of Darius and Sam being healthy or, suffering very, very minor injuries is simply consistency, not just from an individual standpoint, because when you look at this roster from top to bottom, there have been guys who have been consistent all year long. When you're talking about your Sam Merrills of the world, when you're talking about your Donovan Mitchells, and all players will have bad games, rough games, but those are about as consistent of players as you'll get in the modern NBA between those two. And then there have been more, but for every Darius, or for every Donovan and Sam Merrill, there's a DeAndre Hunter or an Evan Mobley, right? You want these guys to stay consistent. You want these guys to continue to involve themselves. You want these guys to continue to play impactful basketball on both ends of the floor, not just offensively. You want DeAndre Hunter involved in the offense, and you want him contributing heavily on the defensive end, because he was sold to us as a pretty solid 3-and-D wing, somebody that could potentially be the missing piece that we were looking for in the starting five. And clearly he hasn't been that this season. There were points at which last season where it really looked promising. He had a very, very good stretch of games in 27 appearances he had last year. But this year it's been inconsistent as hell. He's kind of embodied that. And I think that debunked trade rumor that came out the other day only exacerbated things, because on the one hand, you got people wishing him to be moved, and on the other, you have folks that simply just want him to play better because he's capable of more. And I know that DeAndre saw that. It's probably a good thing that he did, because I think that it led to some inspired play tonight. On the night as a whole, DeAndre Hunter would have finished with 17 points, 4 rebounds, and 4 assists, was 7 of 13 from the field, including 3 of 7 from three-point distance. That is 42.9%, right? And if we're just being honest with ourselves, that is extremely important, because entering tonight, DeAndre Hunter, and this is such a stark contrast. I pointed this out on Twitter earlier on today, but DeAndre Hunter, he was in the 93rd percentile among forwards in the 27 games for Cleveland in regards to three-point shooting at 43% with the Cavs. He was in the 78th percentile in his 37 games with the Hawks last year at 40%, but he was even better with Cleveland in the 93rd percentile. This year, through 36 appearances, DeAndre Hunter is, I kid you not, in the 18th percentile among wings. He's been classified as a wing this year. Cleaning the glasses all over the place with their classifications at times, but nevertheless, you get the point. He's in the 18th percentile among wings this year, shooting just 30% from three-point distance. He has been absolutely pathetic on the season as a whole for me. Just worst career season in that regard. Now, I don't think DeAndre Hunter is a bad shooter by any means. I don't think he is like some sharp shooting flamethrower out there like a Merrill or a Tyson, who has, as Tyson has been this year. But I certainly think that he's better than he has played this year. And I think that is not just a three-point shot. That's all over the court. And it is my hope that he continues to put together more impactful performances. For me, this is the thing. If we're talking about DeAndre Hunter as a whole, it all boils down to one simple thing: the money. DeAndre Hunter, within his own right, is a fine basketball player. He is capable of so much more than he has shown this year. Tonight is a step in the right direction, obviously, with the 17, 4, and 4 on the high efficiency. But making $23 million, that's the fourth highest paid player on the team as of right now. you want more from him. You need more from him. And that's why some of these trade rumors are coming out, because the Cavaliers are not necessarily in a position as the only team over the second apron right now. They are not in a position to simply just waste money. And I'm not saying by any means that Hunter is wasted money, but what I'm saying is that if he has poor showings and he stacks those up, the trade rumors are going to swirl, and they've already been offered some type of deals for him. They've rejected, rebuffed. They've had that happen for a couple of players this year already. Love to know what some of those offers are, by the way, but not really worth going into right now, because they still, for all intents and purposes, want to keep this current unit together. And I think performances like tonight are why they want to see what this team can look like when they get to full strength. But the frustrating thing is that when the fuck are they ever going to be full strength? Because you got dudes getting injured left and right in every other game. Tonight, it's Sam and Darius, and apparently I think they're doubtful to play in this next game against Philly on Friday. And then you already are missing Max, who hasn't played all year. We don't really know what the hell's going on with him. And Dean, right? He's been missing for a good long while now, is what it feels like. It hasn't been that long, but it has felt that way, as Dean has missed I think 5 straight games at this point. I'm trying to go in here and check, but including tonight's performance, Dean Wade has missed the Cavs' last 4 games. It hasn't been that long, right? The last appearance of Dean Wade came against the Indiana Pacers in a victory on January 6th, but he missed both games against Minnesota. He missed the Utah performance, and now he's missed tonight's performance. So hopefully he'll come back soon to kind of offset things, because we know how impactful he can be when he really has it going offensively, and he's a huge wing defender out there. We need him, but it's really going to depend on how confident the Cavaliers are and moving forward. If Darius and Sam miss a chunk of games, we shall see. We shall see where we're at with this team injury wise. But I was really, really impressed with what I saw tonight. Truly, truly impressed. Probably a good time to hop into the chat before we get out of here. Neverloom says, hope DG is okay. Me too, brother. Me too. Neverloom also says, Merrill too. Chaz Erica says, can they do it again Friday, though? I think so. I think that they have shown on many occasions this year that they're capable of outplaying their opponent. They're capable of doing a lot of great things on both ends of the floor when they're engaged and the effort level is high. But the problem is that you haven't gotten consistent efforts across the board in every game this year. That's what's so frustrating about them. It's the general consistency of it all. You'll have performances like you had against Minnesota. And to be honest with you, both Minnesota games were actually pretty good. The Cavaliers just had a couple of things go against them. Some of them self-inflicted. We already talked about the lineup decisions of Kenny Atkinson and putting out 3 guards in the starting unit against a tall team. But outside of that, right, if the shots fall differently in that first game against Minnesota, and Minnesota isn't having magnet ball going in both those games look a lot less competitive than they were. But what I'm trying to say here is that those were 2 actually pretty solid games, all things considered, outside of some of the finer details. You follow those performances up with the just absolutely disgusting display against the Utah Jazz, in which Lowry and Keontae George and Yusuf Nurkic absolutely dominate Cleveland. And then you have, again, they turn right around after a stinker like that, and they have a phenomenal performance against a top 6 seeded team in the Eastern Conference. And I think they're certainly capable of replicating it. But the question is, which version of the Cavaliers are we going to see coming into the game on Friday? Time will tell. AJ17 Gaming says, we won, but at what cost? Yeah, that's what it feels like. I mean, cue the Thanos memes. Your choice. The one that I tweeted out earlier was that this day extracts a heavy toll from from Infinity War, right? But that's what it often feels like. This wasn't a one step forward, two steps back type of performance like we've seen this year. But when you're talking about the injuries, that's what it makes you feel like because the Cavaliers trend up and then something happens, whether it be a injury or an inconsistent effort in the follow up game, and it always feels like something is bugging the Cavaliers. And tonight, unfortunately, it was the injuries, and hoping that they're okay. Kneecap here says DJ was playing great this game. This isn't to shit on him, but at what point do his biggest fans just realize, hey, this guy is always going to be hurt? That's a decision I think that people have to make individually. For me and Darius Garland, because I consider myself a pretty big Darius Garland fan, it just boils down to, will Darius be healthy come the playoffs? I've seen him be healthy in the regular season. I've seen him have healthy postseason runs, but few far and in between. I think the only one where he was truly not coming off of an injury or truly at his highest from a health standpoint was against the New York Knicks in his first career playoff series, right? Not the playing games. That's an entirely different conversation within its own right. But I think that was really the only true series where he was actually truly healthy. He played all 5 games in that series, was pretty up and down, had a good showing or two, but we already know how that ended. Next season, Darius Garland plays all 12 games against the Boston Celtics and Orlando Magic, but this was also coming into season where he broke his jaw. He lost 12 to plus pounds and clearly was not himself. And to make matters worse, the Cavaliers were injured on top of that beyond him. Donovan Mitchell missed a handful of games in the Boston series. Jarrett Allen was out after 4 games, so on and so forth. Dean Wade wasn't completely healthy. Just a number of injuries. And then in the follow-up season, phenomenal regular season for Darius, where he plays a career high in games. And I think not enough people give him credit for that. Playing a career best 75 games last year, only missing 7 games on the season. And then he has a very freak injury in regard to the toe that is still impacting him to this very day. To me, I think that it just, as I mentioned, boils down to, will Darius be healthy in the playoffs? If he's not, after this year, maybe the Cavaliers consider moving on from him, cutting their losses, seeing where they can go in terms of returns. But that's still a big if as of right now. So if you're asking me right now, at what point do we make that determination? It's too soon for me. Maybe it's not for you. If you're not a huge Darius Garland fan, that's perfectly fine. If you're ready to move on from Darius, that's your opinion. As of right now, I'm not, and I'm hoping that the dude is healthy entering the postseason and is able to stay healthy during the postseason, but time will tell. Bread VR says, wait, did Darius Garland and Sam get injured? Yeah, I mean, I think now that you've probably heard me yap and you know what's up. HJ17 Gaming says, I wish Mobley got more shots up in the second half. He had an amazing game, though. Yeah, I mean, it circles back to involvement. And honestly, if this game wasn't a blowout and Darius Garland didn't get hurt, you probably would have seen more involvement from him. And that's not to disparage Donovan at all, because Donovan had a massive amount of assists that were beautiful, especially in the late stages of this game, where as far as long as he played. One of the ones that sticks out to me was the no-look pass in transition to, I think it was DeAndre Hunter for a jam. That was phenomenal. That was a beautiful feed, by the way. And then he had another one where he gets out of the pick and roll. He operates as the initiator in the pick and roll with Jarrett Allen and kicks it out to Jalen Tyson in the left corner for a triple that we know that Tyson cashed home. There were numerous sequences like that tonight where Donovan was just wheeling and dealing out there. And I was just hoping that they got him out of the game early so that he also didn't get hurt. But kudos to Donovan for wheeling and dealing. We'll see. We shall see. If like Spo says, why? Nope. I'm not even gonna comment on that, because I think that was probably replying to somebody else. Nicotine says, every time we start to get healthy, someone gets injured again. No Sam or DG is going to be brutal. We're just waiting on updates at this point. Chaz Erica says, consistency was definitely my point, not so much ability. I'm guessing that's in reference to somebody. Chaz Erica also says, you still under the weather, or were you yelling at the TV? Voice sounds stressed. Listen, I have 4 kids. I also do from time to time yell at my TV when I'm watching this team. I'm always yelling for some reason or another. I mean, that's just the life of a grown man. I feel like sometimes you got to yell, and my voice is always going in or out, especially considering that I spend a good amount of my days talking to you all, right? I've been in here for 45 minutes now, and my voice definitely goes in and out just because I'm yapping up here so much. But yeah, I'm over the sickness. Thank God. Thank the Lord. Ohio Game Talk says we're so wishy-washy. Are we good or no? Yes. And this is the thing that I'm trying to get people to understand. And I'm not taking a shot at you at all. I don't want this to sound like that or come off like that. The Cavaliers are a good team. The question is, are they a great team? Are they a contender? The Cavaliers are inconsistent. If there was one word that I would use to describe this team, I would just say inconsistent. Some people might put a different word in place of that. I know a lot of people are big proponents of the Cavaliers are soft or, things of that nature. But I think the one word to me that describes this team the best is inconsistent. Because as I mentioned, they have performances where they absolutely dominate their opposition. And then they have others where they play down to the level of competition or they just show little to no effort. And that's what's so damn frustrating about this team. And that's why it leads me to the belief that it's about consistency with them. Obviously, they're not who they were last year. Obviously, they don't have the shot creation they did last year when you had guys like Harris LeVert who could put the ball on the floor and was a pretty versatile defender. He was inconsistent himself, but he was a very valuable player due to his versatility. You had Ty Jerome, obviously, who had an anomaly season in staying healthy and was absolutely bonkers in terms of efficiency and shot creation, especially with the floater. And he finished as a Six-Man of the Year finalist as a result. We had players out of the wazoo that could create, right? Especially when you factor in Donovan and Darius and Evan burgeoning as a creator. And it goes on and on. But clearly, they're not that team. But they're still trying to figure out who they are. This new iteration of this team, the 2025-26 version of the Cavaliers, it while it can leave a lot to be desired, they still are truly trying to figure out what exactly their ceiling is and who they are from an identity standpoint, especially on the offensive side of the basketball. They lack a few things. They have a couple of flaws that they probably won't be able to account for this year, but that doesn't mean that they can't overcome said flaws. And I'm very, very interested to see how that plays out the rest of the season. And obviously, the goal here is championship, and they're not ultimately going to be judged until they get to the playoffs. That's what it's all about for this current core. But you got to win enough games to get there. And as of right now, it's been rough going. You've had monumental performances like you had tonight. You've had piss poor performances like you had against Utah, and there have been others. But I do genuinely believe that at their best, when they actually show effort and consistency, they can beat almost any team in the NBA, including some of the Western Conference juggernauts, your Spurs, your OKCs, opponents like that, right? They still have to figure out Houston. That is one team. Like, listen, I know OKC is the defending champion. I understand that, there are teams out in the Western Conference that pose significant threats to the Cavaliers. But if there's one team, even above the OKC Thunder, that gives the Cavaliers nightmares and has for the last couple of years, it's the Houston Rockets. And I know this is way off track, way off of the topics tonight. But if there's one team that I think has shown that they can be a thorn in the Cavaliers' side for years now, it's been Houston. I say all that to say, though, when they're rolling, when they're playing at their best, I do believe that they can contend with anybody in the current NBA. They just got to figure out how to lock in consistency and effort wise, and that's really what it boils down to. But I think this is probably a good stopping point for tonight, guys. If by some chance you're still here, do your boy a favor, hit that like button, subscribe if you're not yet a subscriber to the It's Cavalier podcast. do the same for Positive Hooper. Pop over there, subscribe. I'm dropping more content for that channel, trying to cover the NBA as a whole. And if you're wanting to support the show in a small but helpful way, consider becoming a member over on Patreon or on YouTube for as little as $1 a month. And if you're over on X, do the same thing. Do the same damn thing. Jump over to YouTube, hit that like button, subscribe, yada, yada. As always, go Cavs.